Welcome to this week's City View. Missing Larry Liuzzo today. Sorry to disappoint some of those folks out there that watch this show just to see Larry, including Abigail. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about what we presented last week at Quincy City Council, the last meeting, regarding a major capital program for our city of Quincy. A portion of it is dedicated to parks and open spaces, which would be funded out of the open space account through the hotel tax. The other piece is capital improvements to a lot of buildings and other infrastructure that would be funded by the general fund in our debt service. So I'd like to walk through the program a little bit and remind everybody out there that anytime you have any questions on any of these issues, feel free to call my office. My staff and myself would gladly answer any questions you may have on this. So the first, the slide that you see on the screen there is, it really puts together what the facilities we have throughout the city. When I tell people the amount of buildings that we have and park facilities we have, the amount of roads and sidewalks, water lines, tide gates, pump stations, we're an old city with a lot of infrastructure and a lot of public assets, and those assets belong to you. It's our job to maintain them, and I think this plan goes a long way in moving forward, maintaining them and leaving them better for the next generation. So we're looking at two portions of it as I presented to the City Council. The first piece is the park improvement plan, which is the hotel motel tax, which was passed back in 2002 by the legislature. It was a home rule petition, which created a fund and put a tax on rooms. When visitors come to our city, they use the hotels. That fund is filled through the 4% that's applied to their visiting our city. So it's a great program. It doesn't have any bearing on the taxpayer of Quincy. People that pay your property taxes, this is separate from that. So the $27 million we're talking about in expenditures is completely funded by the hotel room tax. The first major piece of the program really is the Hancock Adams Green, which we've talked about for a number of years in the city. Back in a number of years ago when the downtown was first talked about, there was an outcry from the public that we have more green space and open space in the downtown. Additionally, developers and investors that were looking at our city also indicated they would like to see a more formal program with a park setting in the downtown. And of course, we as a city wanted to see that as well. And we all saw how the Church of the Presidents became a traffic rotary, and that there wasn't that connection between the church, the cemetery, and City Hall because of the 4-lane roadway of Hancock Street cutting right through. So the traffic reconfiguration is done. A lot of the infrastructure work is done. This next phase, $15.7 million, will take us to the next level. You can see kind of a little bit of an overview there. It shows you the church as well as City Hall. This is a bird's eye view looking down. It looks like an arrow shape of what the next phase is of this program. And we've had Halverson Design out of Boston, a landscape design company that won the bid. Rich Houghton's been involved he's a Quincy resident, taking a lot of interest in this program. So the promenade that you just saw will include landscape areas and beautifully landscaped areas. We're talking about heavy, mature plant material. This isn't something we're going to put 2-inch stick trees in. This will be very mature right from the start. Additionally, there'll be beautifully paved walkways, walls, benches, 2 incredibly beautiful water features. One that will be one that you'll hear throughout the park. The other is more contemplative. There's 2 major statues that have already been built. We had a national call for artists a couple of years back, and a statue of Hancock and a statue of Adams will be the 2 pillars of the park, if you will, one on one end of the promenade and one on the other. So this is going to tie in our beautiful historic assets in such a beautiful way. So looking forward to that. So that would be the major piece. You see a couple of slides now. This would be looking north from down by Craig's Cafe, across the street from there. And you see the Hancock statue and the contemplative water feature to the left. And you can see to the right the promenade. And then this is a view looking south from the edge of the McIntyre Mall. You can see the church in front of you. And you can note the beautiful mature trees, the beautiful lights, and the next slide shows the major water feature. But anyway, that's a beautiful, beautiful piece I think everyone will enjoy as part of the park. So that's That's the main piece on the Hancock Adams Green. Again, 15.7 of the 27 million dedicated to that. We said from day one on the downtown that this park would not be paid for by you, the taxpayers of Quincy. It would be paid for from state, federal, or other sources. This is one of those other sources. So proud to report that, and I'm hopeful the council sees the wisdom in this project, tying our historical assets together. And if you feel strongly about it, I'd urge you to weigh in with the City Council, your councilor, and let them know how important this is to you. Next, we'll go to Merrymount Park. Merrymount Park is really the gem of our park system. It encompasses an awful lot of various types of uses, both active and recreationally. It's the home of Veterans Memorial Stadium, Adams Field, Coletta Field, Pageant Field, Mitchell McCoy Stadium. It's got beautiful wooded trails, estuaries, salt marsh, just absolutely beautiful vistas from Pageant out to the ocean. You can see Boston Light actually from up on top of Pageant Field. So it's one of those special places we have in the city that was made possible by none other than Charles Francis Adams II. At the time, he was a Civil War hero. He was president of the Union Pacific Railroad. He had a great interest and love for his town of Quincy. And started a park association with a group of other folks. Tried to get the town to vote in park commissions to put together the first really formal park in our city. That was refused 2 or 3 different times. He wasn't going to be put down, though. He was frustrated, but he persevered. He actually put the pieces of land together himself. They were valued around $16,000 at the time, and donated to the town at that time 72 acres, which we know as Merrymount Park. Later, another addition was made called Pine Island, another 8 acres to that gift. But if you look historically, that gift from Charles Francis Adams kind of woke the city up, or the town up, later to become a city. And within a couple of decades, the town recognized the need for parks in different wards of the city and started to put money forth for that purpose. So we're grateful for his gift to the city. And what we're looking to do, and I'm going to show you some slides as we walk through this. These are some old black and whites that go way back. Though Charles Francis Adams was a good friend of Frederick Law Olmsted, the town of Quincy didn't have the money at the time to pay him. However, they took a train trip together out to the Midwest and had quite a conversation about the uses. And it wasn't until 1937 that Herbert Kellaway was hired. He was an associate of Olmsted to actually do the first formal plan for the park. And you see some old black and whites. You see the creek. This is the old Walter Smith shell. There used to be shows held at this location. This may have been before the Hat Shell in the famous Esplanade, who knows. But that was removed back in the early 50s. It hadn't been maintained. You can see a great shot here, Wollaston Beach, the old cars going down the boulevard. This is a dedication at the time of the plaque for Captain Wollaston. We know Mount Wollaston, and Wollaston named for him. He came and created a fur trading post at the time. And then, of course, you see some other shots of canoes and so forth in the Blacks Creek. This little bridge is at Merrymount Parkway near Furnace Brook Parkway. That opening is much wider now under that creek, and that behind them, that hill, is what would have been Pageant Field. You can see there's far fewer trees at that time. Here's a shot of another angle for Wollaston Beach, the Greenberg Bridge from Blacks Creek. This is before tide gates were installed for flood control. And there's some other shots here. You can see the old vehicles in this photo. In 1925, the city celebrated its 300th anniversary, and they had a number of events around that. Pearlie Barber was mayor. He was very, very excited, and he put together one heck of a program. And you can see some pictures of the crowds, and then, of course, the stands and stages that were set up to have the place. So, you know, part of the improvements we're talking about are passive improvements, greater viewscapes, trails, actually bridges to connect. Right now you have a Merrymount Park that's independent of Grossman Park, that's independent of Caddy Park, that's independent of the walking side of Furnace Brook Parkway. This program will actually tie the whole thing in together, and you can see an overview in this little concept. Dead center in the middle of that picture would be Pine Island. To the left of that, you'll see 2 diamonds, that's Pageant Field. So this program takes what Merrymount Park is 80 acres and connects really more than 130 acres, and creating, again, great opportunities for passive recreation, walkers, bikers, and joggers to come in and enjoy this absolutely beautiful, beautiful location. We're so so fortunate to have it. So that leads us to the next item. For the first time in our city, we're going to have a dedicated dog park. We have more than 3,000 licensed dog owners in Quincy. There's been a call for a specific dog park, and we're looking to do that up on Quarry Street. The city owns more than 20 acres at the southern end of what was the High Point program. It was back a number of years, just south of the newest buildings, which were built by Avalon Property. So across from the Sons of Italy, we'll be installing a roadway, bringing us into the site. And this program will provide for that roadway as well as a dog park. And we do have a matching grant from the Stanton Foundation to help us with that. And we'll get into the animal shelter a little bit later. In addition, another major program here is the Maritime Center in Howes Neck. We are looking to acquire 4 pieces of property that abut the today's Maritime Center and Public Landing down just before the Quincy Yacht Club in Howes Neck. And we've been very successful in acquiring state monies. I happen to serve on the Seaport Economic Council for the governor, representing this region. And through the council, we've received almost $1 million over the last 2 or 3 years to do the new ramp and to do the design for the new Maritime Center. And once we have the design complete, and once we acquire these parcels, we then will go back to the state, ask for the help in constructing the new Maritime Center with an additional grant. And I thank our legislative delegation, as always, for their support. And certainly the Ward 1 Council has been very supportive, Margaret LaForest, of this program. So that's another major piece. Citywide improvements for the parks will include the next piece of the Faxon Park Master Plan, another beautiful piece of land that was given to the city. It was actually given at around the same time as when Adams gave the property for Merrymount Park. So it was known as the South Commons by Henry Hardwick Faxon. Hardwick Road was named for the Faxon family, as was Faxon Park Road. They were very, very wonderful citizens. They great prominent business folks, but they had a love for the city, as did the Adamses, and wanted to leave their mark. And with that, we have a beautiful now, approaching around the same acreage as Merrymount Park, roughly 80 acres up there at Faxon Park. And those folks that have been up there, we know we've added to that location, and this will give us some the seed money necessary to bring some of those areas up to snuff with some new ball fields, some additional facilities that will serve that park quite well. Kincaid Park, which is over in southwest Quincy, across from the Lincoln Hancock School, is another location we're going to do some major renovation to. Just on the other end of it, across Robert Street, we're going to be building a new middle school to replace the old Sterling Middle School. So this recreation spot will serve both schools as well as the neighborhood of the southwest part of our city. In addition, we're looking at the permitting for, you may have read about, I know that we've talked about it before, we're building a new boathouse facility at the Mound Street Beach area, which is just below the Forever Clubhouse area there. And Jay Cashman, a prominent businessman here today, loves the city and has offered and will be paying for the complete construction of the new boating facility. What this money is needed for is for the design and permitting that will be required by the state agencies such as DEP and Coastal Zone Management, Army Corps of Engineers, and God knows how many other agencies we'll have to touch. The folks at Quincy Youth Baseball have been working hard to put some lights up at Quarry Hills. And they have got some donations, in kind and otherwise, and we'll be providing some additional match to that program to get that finished up, which would be cool. The completion of the Ray Dunn Field and 4 river improvements is part of this program. Replacement of the turf at Veteran Stadium is part of this program. It's more than 10 years old now, and it's been very, very well used. And just about every park and playground in the city will be looking at a complete renovation under this program. At this point, I'd like to slip over now to the capital plan, which is more in line with buildings and infrastructure, seawalls, tide gates, and so forth, technology that will be included in the program, and that's about a $25 million program. Now, I want to remind folks out there that we have a debt service line in the municipal budget each year. One is we have one of the lowest debt ratios in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for any city, which is huge. 2 is we have great capacity. We also know in these times that interest rates are very low, and it makes sense to advance some of these projects so that we can do it in stretching the dollars of you, the taxpayer, even further. And keep in mind, when we bring in new burden on, there's always burden falling off of that debt service line. You know, North Quincy High the addition was built many years ago. That's now off the books. The Quincy Hospital, there was some borrowing done for that. That is now off the books. So as we take stuff off the books, we can add things to the books for the right programs going forward. And I got some slides in here that show some of the conditions that we're dealing with in some of these old buildings. Remember that in our custody is 20 school buildings, 8 firehouses, a police station, DPW complex with many buildings, Park and Rec, which has many buildings. We have a main library, 3 branch libraries, a number of small outbuildings in various locations that all need to be taken care of. So this program is going to provide some major dollars to be able to deal with some of those challenges we're facing. And we just showed a few slides of some of the conditions of the buildings as we see them. The Crane Libraries, you know, the addition was done a number of years ago under then Mayor Jim Sheets. Beautiful addition. But the original Richardson building needs attention badly. We've got leaks in that building. The roof needs to be addressed, the downspouts, the gutters, the pointing of the building, the windows. I mean, that is an incredible architectural gem. Just as we fixed City Hall in Coddington, we're now going to address the Richardson building because it's a great part of our heritage, as well as improvements to some of the other library area branches as well. Next major one would be a new animal shelter. I spoke a little earlier about the dog park. In addition to the dog park, we're going to locate at that site a new animal shelter. Currently today we have an animal shelter which is primitive at best, that sits on Broad Street over by the Public Works yard. It's completely surrounded by asphalt. It is inadequate, and it's really not in good shape, and I'm so grateful. We've got some dedicated city employees, but some amazing volunteers that come down and assist with feeding and taking care of the animals, as well as providing adoption programs to find homes for these animals. So this is going to give us a great opportunity, and we're looking at about $7 million for that program. However, we believe we're going to get some matches and some grant monies that will reduce that number dramatically. So keep you posted on that. I should also add that we'll put the canine unit up in there as well. Police unit, drug dogs are in the canine unit. We have 9 of them today, 9 canines, and we need a home for them as well, which will give that whole area even better security at the same time. Public safety headquarters, there's money in here for design of a new public safety headquarters, which I've talked about for a couple of years. The police station is in deplorable condition, needs replacement. Our central firehouse is needing a lot of work. The firehouses, many of them were built for old horse and buggy day, and the apparatus has gotten very heavy, and structurally it's been a challenge. So we've got $500,000 in here for design and engineering to look at this. We're looking to acquire the Bryan Post, which abuts the police station site, as part of this program, and then come back to the City Council with a full plan to then come up with a design, bring a design into and then come up with a plan going forward to execute, which today I'm calling for a new public safety headquarters, which would include a firehouse, a police station, and also some additional office space for some of the city offices. For example, Veteran Services is in a little bungalow on High School Avenue down behind the main firehouse. It's not a very good location, nor is it very efficient for our veterans. It's certainly not very welcoming. So we'll deal with a number of those items at that as well. Schools will continue to work very hard to maintain and expand. Under Prop 2.5 many years ago in the early 80s, lots of schools were closed, and we lost some neighborhood schools. And I think Quincy Point and West Quincy probably suffered more than any other area. Well, Quincy Point has had a new school built with the Clifford Marshall going back at least 15 or 18 years ago now, I think. This plan calls for the acquisition of the old St. Mary's school site, which would then give us a location to build a new small elementary school at that site, which helps the residents of West Quincy. It also helps those schools that those folks travel to. Believe it or not, if you live up on Plymouth Avenue on the other side of the expressway, you bring your kids for elementary school to Montclair School down on Squantum Street, which is quite a distance. So this will be, I think, a welcome opportunity for those folks that also go to school, but also those folks that, if we have the new school built, will appreciate the additional education space available to continue to deal with things. We also have put a statement of interest in again with the School Building Authority to replace the old Squantum School out on Huckins Avenue in front of the Wendell Moses Playground. And hopefully in the next round of the School Building Authority we'll have some success there, and I'm grateful to Treasurer Goldberg and again our legislative delegation for their help. In addition, there'll be a number of technology items in this program. We're looking at software upgrades for city systems, radios for our police and fire department. Obviously our first responders put their lives on the line. We've got to provide them with the best tools and resources we can. This will upgrade the radio system for them. New software for managing our tree inventory. I think we can do a better job at that. This will allow us to do it. And some new software to really manage just what I presented to the council and helping us put together a nice program in tracking things on our assets going forward. There's also some other major items in here. I know one of the issues that comes up frequently when I'm out and about is the issue of traffic. And traffic is not unique to Quincy. I must say that no matter where I travel these days, certain times of the day, no matter what town or city you're in, traffic is an issue. We're putting together a program where we're hiring a major engineering company. We went through an RFP process. A committee is voted on the company, is supported by the committee entirely, unanimously, and they've recommended that to me. So I'm asking the council as part of this program to fund a major citywide traffic study that would look at every intersection, every sign, every pedestrian challenge, bike lanes, residential parking permitting, all of those things that we've kind of chewed around the edges on for many years, but this will give us a real comprehensive program, kind of the roadmap going forward that we can follow. That doesn't mean we won't continue to do things while the study's going on. And we're going to continue to do a number of traffic improvements, intersection improvements, such as C Street at Quincy Shore Drive, which the planning is underway now with MassDOT. So we'll continue to do that. And we'll certainly engage each and every neighborhood to look at the challenges every neighborhood faces. So I think there'll be good things that will come out of that. Other infrastructure issues, design and permitting for flood relief projects. We're looking at Arlington Street. It's in the kind of the Montclair-Wollaston section. A lot of Montclair is built on an old bog. The drainage issue down there is difficult. And we need to look perhaps to build another pump station. And this program will hire an engineering company to do that, to look at what we need to do and then spell it out and come up with a plan going forward. Additional Furnace Brook improvements down in West Quincy, where the worst of the floods occurred back in the spring of 2010, which includes Miller Street, Cross Street, Ulrich Road, and a number of folks in the Furnace Brook area. We've done some major improvements down there. Congressman Lynch has secured a $5 million grant from FEMA to build a pump station. So we're making good progress, but we're not there yet, so more work needs to be done. Seawalls. The city owns almost 12 miles of seawalls that need attention. And we were just fortunate to secure a grant from Governor Baker's administration for $440,000. And we needed to come up with a match, about $147,000 to that, to actually do the design of seawall replacement upgrade that runs really from parts of Merrymount down through Adams Shore into Howes Neck. It won't do all of our 11.7 miles of seawalls, but it will help with that section, and we'll continue to move that program forward. And then, of course, in general, we have improvements we make each and every year that are assigned financially to a separate set of books, and that is the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. When you pay your water and sewer bill, that is separate from the general budget. So in that budget each year, we have money in there to do upgrades to water lines, upgrades to sewer lines as needed. And we've had a pretty aggressive program. Before we pave a street today, we usually look at the old utilities underground that probably need to be replaced, and we've been doing that. So we haven't been paving as many streets as we'd like, but in the streets we've done, we shouldn't have to touch them for a long, long time because we made those necessary upgrades, which are underground, you don't see every day. So that will be a part of this project. And last year we had an appropriation to help us do a number of projects relating to streets and sidewalks. And this summer, after much work on the specifications, the engineering, those jobs will hit the street. You've already seen a major portion of Bergen Parkway done, a major portion of Southern Artery done with some of those monies. We've got about 12 neighborhood streets coming up that will be done this summer into this fall. And then, of course, as we go forward, I know that there are an awful lot of needs out there for road and sidewalk. And I would suggest that's the case in many, many communities around us, not unique to Quincy. But I would suggest now next year, when we renew our capital program, this is kind of a 5-year plan that continues to roll. It's a living, breathing document that continues to change, continues to evolve. And so next year, we'll be back before the council for additional monies for road repair. The city does receive money from the state each year under what's called the Chapter 90 program. and they're funding it about $1.9 million for Quincy. To put that in perspective, a couple of years ago we did Adams Street between Lake and Square and Furnace Brook Parkway, and that was about $1.5 million. It shows you that $1 million doesn't go as far as it used to go. But we'll kind of augment that appropriation next year with another appropriation from the municipal side. As some of you know, we had a very difficult, as all of you know, we had a very difficult winter 2 years ago. And this is the third year in paying that off, the expenses incurred to get us through that winter. As that money is freed up, that allows us then to do more with the roads and sidewalks, which I know will be very welcome from folks. So again, to wrap up on the financial side, I want to remind everybody to date that everything you see that's been happening in the city, we've been working very hard leveraging federal and state dollars. So for every dollar we're spending, we're getting $2 or $3 more from our federal and state partners. And to date, we've received more than $110 million in reimbursements from the School Building Authority for various school projects, including Quincy High Central and other upgrades. That does not include the anticipated almost $30 million in reimbursement for the new middle school in Southwest Quincy. We've received more than $46 million in all kinds of infrastructure work for the downtown, moving the Town Brook, the construction of Hannon Parkway, the rerouting of Hancock Street and the utility work there. We also have ready to go an additional $40 million approved for future infrastructure work from the state. So we're excited about that. And again, the hotel motel continues to grow in capacity. It allows us to do a number of things. So, you know, we've been responsible, I think, in borrowing, how we borrow and at the rate we're borrowing. It's the best bond rating the city's ever had historically. We still have very low interest rates. Again, we have the lowest debt burden among cities. And we have good flexibility with our capacity. So it is the right time to do these projects. You can't continue to push them off. We saw that for too long in our city's history. And you know, and I understand that. People come first. You don't want to lay off employees when you're dealing with tight budgets. But the reality is, we are the custodian of your public assets. We need to maintain those public assets. And we need to do a good job in passing the city on to the next generation, just as those generations before us have done for us. And I think of the early part of the last century. You know, I spoke of Adams and the Faxons with the parks. You think about what the city fathers at the time were doing in the 1920s, and you look at all of those school buildings that were constructed, quality, brick, granite buildings providing for the need of the young people at that time. We should do no different. It's our job, it's our responsibility, in fact, to do that for the next generation. And you know, there's a great quote from Charles Francis Adams that part of it comes from, you know, he was the grandson of John Quincy Adams, so great-grandson of John Adams. And the quote reads, "While it is surely in my power to do something for the town and its people, which, as time goes on, will be of ever-increasing value and serve to remind coming names and generations of the names and generations that are gone." And I think that's well put. That shows the love for our community, of our city, also shows the responsibility we have for the next generation. So there'll be a lot more information we'll be sharing with you in the coming weeks. I encourage you to weigh in with the City Council. I encourage you to go to the Finance Committee meetings that will be held in the coming weeks, and those meetings will certainly be on the website. I encourage you to take a peek at that. And again, I thank you for your time, once again, in tuning in, and I hope this was helpful in learning a little bit more about the capital improvement program we have before the City Council. Thank you, and see you next time.